A whip of iron, 20 lashes deep, skin split, blood everywhere. Roman guards didn't flinch. By 50 AD, they'd torn hundreds apart in public. Ancient records say prisoners confessed before the whip even touched them. Today, I'll show you 10 of the most horrific torture devices ancient empires ever used, and why these methods still haunt our world's memory. Let's start with number 10. Roman lead whip, flagrum, tore flesh with every strike. Imagine facing punishment for a crime, but instead of prison, your sentence involves a whip laced with chunks of lead or sharp metal. The Roman flagrum isn't a legend. It's a real device that changed how the world thought about pain and power. How did this whip become a symbol of Roman control? And what happened to those who felt it? The flagrum is basically a leather whip, but the Romans added heavy lead balls or jagged bones at the tips. Each strike landed with a double hit. First the leather, then the lead smashed into flesh. Skin didn't just bruise, it split open, sometimes down to the bone. Roman historians record that the flagrum was used for both discipline and torture. Soldiers, slaves, and criminals faced it, often in front of a crowd. During the 1st century BCE, Roman law allowed up to 40 lashes for certain crimes. But there are cases, especially for slaves, where that number got much higher. Seneca writes about victims who lost all their skin in public floggings. Even Jesus of Nazareth, according to the Gospels, suffered the flagrum before crucifixion. Archaeological finds in Herculaneum and Pompeii include whips with metal tips, confirming these details. Some people died from shock or blood loss alone, before any other punishment started. Ancient graffiti and court records show the threat of the flagrum was enough to keep most people in line. Its reputation alone traveled through centuries, even shaping how medieval torturers thought about pain. But when the flagrum failed to break a person, Romans had another method waiting, one that dragged punishment out for days and became a symbol seen all over the world. Here comes number 9. Roman cross executed thousands through an excruciating crucifixion. Think about a punishment so extreme, people across continents still shudder at the idea thousands of years later. The Roman cross wasn't just a tool of execution, it became a warning, a public show, and a religious icon. How did crucifixion become the empire's go-to display of power, and who survived to tell the tale? Crucifixion was the ultimate sentence for rebels, slaves, and criminals. Romans didn't invent it, but they perfected it. Victims were stripped, beaten, then forced to carry the crossbeam, sometimes weighing 100 pounds, to the execution spot. Soldiers nailed or tied them to the wood, then hoisted the whole structure upright for everyone to see. Crucifixion could take hours or even days to kill. Most victims died from shock, dehydration, or suffocation as their bodies slumped down. Josephus, a Jewish historian, wrote that during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE, Roman troops crucified up to 500 people a day. Some ancient estimates suggest that over 30,000 people died this way under Roman law. Crucifixion was always public, usually outside city gates or along roads. Tertullian called it the most notorious death. The Romans sometimes used innovations like footrests or pegs to prolong agony, and there are records of Roman emperors ordering mass crucifixions after revolts. Spartacus's followers, 6,000 men, were nailed along the Appian Way after their failed rebellion. Even after death, bodies were left on display to rot, driving the message home. Eventually, the cross became a global religious symbol, but its original purpose was pure domination. Roman citizens could avoid crucifixion, but slaves and outsiders had no chance. Next, imagine a device designed not for display, but to burn and destroy from the inside out. If you're enjoying this story, give us hype for this video right now. Hit that subscribe button and drop a like so this series reaches every explorer out there. The next twist in this story is seconds away, and trust me, you'll want to be here when it drops. Let's move to number 8. Persian red-hot poker inflicted searing pain deep inside the body. Some punishments don't just break the body, they aim to erase identity, honor, and hope in one horrifying act. The Persian red-hot poker represents one of the most extreme uses of fire in ancient torture. What led the Persians to create this infamous device, and why did it leave a mark on world history? The red-hot poker method involved heating a thick iron rod until it glowed orange, then forcing it into the victim's body, often through the mouth, rectum, or wounds. Ancient sources point to Persian kings using this for high-profile traitors and royal enemies. According to Herodotus and Plutarch, even royal family members faced poker during the Achaemenid Empire, especially under rulers like Cambyses II. This punishment was meant to shock and terrify. The burning pain was instant, but internal damage continued for hours. Sometimes the poker was applied publicly, sometimes in secret dungeons. Either way, survivors were almost unheard of. Persian inscriptions and court records warn of fiery rods as a threat to anyone plotting against the king. One famous victim, the Greek historian Ctesias, describes palace conspirators executed this way. Roman writers later used the image to scare their own enemies. The red-hot poker technique outlasted Persia, showing up in medieval Europe during witch trials. This device is rarely shown in movies or museums, but its story rippled across ancient empires. It's proof that fear can be engineered and spread far beyond one city or century. Now, picture a torture so slow and methodical that victims lost their lives one tiny piece at a time. Next one is number 7. Chinese Ling Chi, death by 1,000 cuts, slowly dismantled victims. Imagine being condemned to death, but instead of a quick execution, your punishment means losing your body, one cut at a time, while everyone watches. The Chinese Ling Chi, known as death by 1,000 cuts, isn't just a legend from ancient China. It's a real torture, written about and photographed well into the 20th century. Ling Chi became an official sentence during the Tang dynasty, but it reached its terrifying peak during the Ming and Qing dynasties. It was reserved for crimes considered especially horrific: treason, parricide, or killing a master. Instead of a single stroke, the executioner used a small, sharp knife to remove pieces of flesh in a specific order. First, slices from the chest or thighs, then arms, and finally the face. Records say some victims endured hundreds of cuts before losing consciousness. By 1905, Ling Chi had been used for over 1,000 years. European missionaries in China witnessed and photographed some of the last public executions, shocking the world with images published in newspapers. French diplomat Henri Cordier wrote, "A body is whittled away until nothing remains but the bones." The process was theatrical. Sometimes, family members paid the executioner to make it quick, but others, especially traitors, were kept alive as long as possible. Some reports claim opium was given to prevent fainting. Ling Chi was abolished in 1905 after international outrage, but it left a psychological scar on Chinese society. Ling Chi's message: loyalty is everything. And for those facing the next device, death sometimes came with a crueler fate: skin taken as a trophy of power. Let's move to number 6. A Syrian flaying knife stripped skin from living prisoners. Now imagine losing your skin, piece by piece, while a crowd takes notes and your conqueror smiles. The Assyrian Empire, one of the world's first true superpowers, used flaying as a signature punishment, making the flaying knife a tool of both torture and intimidation. Assyrian kings ruled Mesopotamia between 900 and 600 BCE, and their records are brutal. Palace walls show stone carvings of soldiers skinning rebels alive, hanging the hides for all to see. According to the annals of Ashur-Nasir-Pal II and Sennacherib, flaying was the standard sentence for rebellious governors, enemy kings, and sometimes entire towns. The process started at the feet or hands and worked upward. Death could take hours, and survivors were rare. Royal inscriptions don't hide the horror. "Their skins I spread upon the walls of the city, Ashurnasirpal II boasts. These acts were not done in secret. Instead, flaying became a warning. Cities considering rebellion saw the skins of failed leaders at the gates. Archaeological digs in Nimrud and Nineveh have uncovered blades and hooks believed to be used for this exact purpose. Assyrian brutality was famous even in their own time. Greek historian Herodotus and later Roman writers compared Assyrian punishments to hell itself. The psychological impact stretched far beyond the battlefield. Flaying discouraged uprisings for generations. Empires fall, but fear lasts. The next device makes this clear by turning a human body into a spectacle, raising it high on a stake for everyone to judge. Here comes number 5. Babylonian impalement stake. Displayed enemies skewered for all to see. Picture this. A battlefield falls silent as the victors hammer sharpened stakes into the ground. Prisoners look on, knowing the worst is coming. Babylonian impalement wasn't just about death. It turned suffering into a public lesson for every enemy who dared to resist. Babylonians used impalement as early as 1800 BCE. Hammurabi's Code, one of the oldest legal texts, mentions impalement for certain crimes, including temple robbery. The condemned faced a tall wooden stake, sometimes over 10 feet high. Executioners forced the stake through the body, usually entering below and exiting through the back or chest. The process was slow, agonizing, and shockingly visible. Records from the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II show impalement used against rebels and captured leaders. Babylonian soldiers sometimes raised dozens of bodies along city walls as a warning. Herodotus, traveling through Mesopotamia, wrote that Persians and Babylonians both used impalement to keep order. Darius impaled 3,000 men in Babylon after a revolt. Pain wasn't the only weapon. Shame and humiliation followed. Victims stayed alive for hours or even a full day, exposed to the sun, insects, and mockery. Later empires, including the Persians, Greeks, and Ottomans, copied Babylonian impalement, spreading its reputation even further. Modern archaeologists have found ancient stakes, as well as carvings depicting impaled victims in sites across Iraq. For the Babylonians, the goal was to make enemies regret ever challenging the king. But torture also evolved, moving from the outdoors to dark dungeons, where new devices pressed in from every angle. Next one is number 4. Torture chair pressed sharp spikes into every inch of the body. It sounds almost impossible, a chair that turns sitting into agony, with hundreds of metal spikes hidden in every curve. Yet the torture chair didn't start in Europe. Its roots go back to the ancient world, where control meant pain delivered in total silence. Versions of the torture chair first appeared in the Near East and Egypt, but by the time of the Greeks and Romans, they'd become a tool for both interrogation and execution. Victims were stripped, strapped down, and forced to sit for hours. Sharp metal points pressed into flesh with every movement. Some chairs were heated from below, multiplying the pain. Ancient sources record that chairs with iron spikes were used by Egyptian and Persian officials for high-level prisoners, especially suspected traitors. The Romans had their own version, called the sella torturis. Writers like Suetonius describe its use for political enemies, and Greek medical texts mention wounds matching spike patterns. Survival was rare. Many died from shock, blood loss, or infection. Public records from Alexandria tell of thrones of iron in royal dungeons used to punish conspirators. In one story, a high priest survived 6 hours, confessing everything before losing consciousness. The chair's real power lay in fear. Just showing it made most prisoners talk. As the centuries passed, torture chairs became even more extreme in medieval times, but their ancient legacy remains: simple, effective, and unforgettable. Moving from the secret chamber to the city square, the next device made a public event with every crack and crash. Let's move to number 3. Greek wheel, tympanum. Crushed limbs and shattered bones in public. You're dragged into the main square, tied down, and the crowd gathers. All eyes are on the huge wooden wheel, also called the tympanum, about to become your worst nightmare. What made this device so terrifying, and how did it spread beyond Greece? The Greek wheel started as a tool for breaking rebellious slaves and enemies of the state. Victims were strapped across a giant wheel, arms and legs spread wide. The executioner spun or rotated the wheel while striking the limbs with iron bars or hammers. Bones snapped. Sometimes the wheel was raised up, leaving the broken body to die slowly in the sun. Greek playwrights like Euripides mention the tympanum in tragedies. Real-life examples come from court records in Athens and Sparta. Authorities reserved this punishment for traitors and repeat offenders. Some victims survived for days, their injuries put on display as a warning. The idea traveled with Alexander's armies to Persia, India, and beyond. Archaeologists have found fragments of large wheels and iron restraints in ancient Greek and Roman sites, matching written accounts. Roman historians called their version the rota, a direct descendant of the Greek wheel. What stands out most is the public nature of the punishment. People watched, learned, and feared. Broken bodies became billboards for state power. The wheel set a standard for cruelty that lasted centuries. But Greek inventiveness didn't stop there. The next device showed how a single tool could pull out a person's insides in just minutes. Here comes number 2. Egyptian hook. Yanked organs out through a single brutal incision. Sometimes, pain goes beyond punishment and turns into ritual. The Egyptian hook, mostly known from their mummification process, became a deadly torture device when used on the living. Imagine one tool that could change a person's fate in seconds. Egyptians are famous for their knowledge of the body, and they used specialized bronze hooks to remove brains through the nose during mummification. But court records from the Old and Middle Kingdoms, 2000 to 1500 BCE, show these same hooks employed in executions. Punishments for traitors or grave robbers sometimes involved pulling out internal organs while the victim was still conscious. Papyrus scrolls and tomb carvings describe high officials purified by extraction, meaning the removal of vital organs. Some stories say victims faced public execution, while others mention secret rituals in the temples. Archaeological digs at Saqqara and Thebes have found hooks buried with warning inscriptions for the removal of impurity. This device mixed science, religion, and terror. The hook's psychological power kept most Egyptians loyal to the pharaoh. Foreigners caught spying or stealing sacred items faced the ultimate warning. In the end, even Egypt's greatest secrets couldn't hide the violence used to protect them. The hook, with its single sharp point, paved the way for other torture tools designed to bend the human body far past its breaking point. And the last is number 1. Chinese tiger bench, snapped legs by forcing bodies into impossible angles. Let's end with a device so simple it looks almost harmless, until you understand the pain it can cause. The Chinese tiger bench has been used for centuries, breaking both bodies and minds in plain sight. The bench is a flat wooden board with ropes for tying the victim's legs and ankles. Once strapped in, bricks or wooden blocks are added under the feet, raising them higher and higher. This stretches the knees and shins past natural limits, causing ligaments to tear and bones to break. Victims couldn't move or resist. Interrogators kept adding blocks until the screams reached the right pitch. Historical records from the Ming Dynasty show the tiger bench used on political prisoners, spies, and even women accused of witchcraft. Some sources say it appeared in the Song Dynasty as early as 1000 CE. Official court documents describe hundreds of cases per year, with some victims losing the ability to walk forever. Survivors often had permanent damage, twisted joints, and shattered knees. The tiger bench is still rumored to exist in some places. Human rights reports from the 20th and 21st centuries mention it in Chinese prisons and detention centers. It's a device that crosses time, showing up whenever authorities want a quick confession. Each of these devices has its own story, a mix of fear, science, and total control. Together, they show how ancient empires shaped the world not just with armies, but with pure terror. You just saw history's darkest secrets, but the next story goes even deeper. Another device, another empire, a new twist. Hit that next video.